just arrived in Corinth. There are many well-known places in Greece, and today we were faced with a tough choice. We had one day here and had to choose between Athens or Corinth. We ultimately chose Corinth, though the clincher was that it included a trip down the Corinth canal, both ways.
We're in the ancient city of Corinth where the Apostle Paul came to preach.
2 books of the Bible are written to the church in Corinth by the Apostle Paul, who visited here 3 times. This is actually the site of ancient Corinth, occupied from before 3000 BC, but most historical sources date back to the early 8th century BC, when Corinth began to develop as a commercial center. This hill has seen much happen in the last few thousand years. In places like this, I'm always trying to imagine what was going on a couple of thousand years ago. People selling their produce. Perhaps a traveler buying pita bread. This is the Temple of Apollo, built on a hill that was the highest part of the city. When excavations began here, the columns of the Temple of Apollo were all that were visible. Having said that, it was built in 540 BC upon an earlier foundation that's even older, 2,500 years old and still standing. Many of the ancient ruins here date back at least 2,000 years. In times past, however, this has been an unfortunate place to live, having suffered 2 major earthquakes and a great fire. We can gaze on well-preserved ruins and remind ourselves that the Apostle Paul no doubt walked down this road and preached under the iconic Acrocorinth mountain that overlooks the old city, and which was at one time the location of the notorious Temple of Aphrodite. They would have used drachma, silver coin of ancient Greece, dating from about the mid-6th century BC, that was one of the world's earliest coins. Its name derives from the Greek verb meaning to grasp, and its original value was the equivalent of that of a handful of arrows. So if this is an important Christian site, we might ask, is there any mention of it in the Bible? Well, this is the Bema, a raised platform where officials gave public addresses, erected around 44 BC, and to which the Jews brought Paul for judgment by Gallio, the proconsul of Achaia. Biblical history was enacted right here. Corinth is described in the Bible as an evil city where all kinds of debauchery existed, and certainly the Temple of Aphrodite, with 1,000 ceremonial prostitutes, bears this out. Desiring to change this, the apostle stayed here and preached for 18 months, staying with his friends Aquila and Priscilla, who had fled from Rome when the Emperor Claudius expelled all the Jews from the city in 49 AD. Rachel was on camera too today, so we got great shots. One very interesting fact is that not only did Paul write 2 letters to the Corinthians, but he also wrote some letters from Corinth during his time here, notably to the Romans and probably the Thessalonians. Not only is biblical history here, the fountain of Pyrene, a spring in Greek mythology, is located here and was said to be a favored watering hole of Pegasus, the mythical winged horse, the child of Poseidon. The legend about Pyrene is that she was a woman who became a spring because of her tears shed in lamentation for her son Cancreus, who was unintentionally killed by Artemis. Poets would travel here to drink the water and receive inspiration. There's a museum here, the Archaeological Museum of Ancient Corinth, that contained many exhibits found here. Though I was intrigued that outside they had headless statues, and inside, bodiless heads. Our final visit here was to the nearby Roman Odeum. An Odeum is a Roman theatre. The one here was constructed in the 1st century AD and is estimated to have held an audience of 3,000 spectators for cultural performances of music and rhetoric. But now it's time to take a trip down the Corinth Canal. Next on Ixion, a visit to the legendary Corinth Canal. First thought of by Roman emperors and even started by Nero. A magnificent feat of engineering and some unusual sights. Don't miss it.